Welcome to Book Friendzy. Today we're in London, England with author Lauren Child. The process of you becoming a writer of children's books, was that something you had thought about when you were younger, growing up, or?
Well, it was sort of an accident. When I was 18, me and a friend wrote this book together at school, and then we took it to some publishers, and amazingly a publisher said, yes, we'll publish it, but you have to do these things. You know, they gave us a list of things that they needed us to do in order to publish it, and they took us out for a business lunch, and we were just really excited about the business lunch and never did any of the other stuff. I mean, that was enough, you know, you just got taken out for lunch, you got a letter saying we're interested, and that was the most exciting thing. So that was kind of it, because we never took up the offer or anything. And then the next thing was sort of trying lots and lots of different things. I always knew I wanted to do something in the sort of arts, but I wasn't really sure what. And then I did a lot of kind of failing at things, not, you know, keen to do something but not doing particularly well at it. So I remember going to see somebody, and she was somebody else's business manager, and she sort of looked at my portfolio, and then she just said, well, it seems like she's got an interest in children's design, and it seems like she's interested in film and TV and animation, and so if she wants to get a job in that, maybe what she should do is write a children's book.
Okay. Because
that way you kind of, it's like a calling card. You show you can write and you can design.
Right. Now, in the process of making your books, is it the visual element that comes first, or do you sit down and write the story, or how does that process go for you usually?
Well, it varies a little bit from book to book, but usually it's something like a funny phrase. Somebody says something in a particular way, and I'll write it down in a notebook, and then sometimes it kind of makes a sort of springboard to come up with a next idea and the next idea, and you sort of begin, and usually it takes over months or maybe even years. It starts to form into a story. It doesn't normally happen straight away, and other things that happen is I'll see somebody interesting in the street, and I'll remember them in my head, and I'll go and draw a picture of them. And for instance, I remember when I was in New York for a while, there was this lady, and she was tiny, really, really tiny old lady, and her face looked like an old leaf, you know, she's kind of really withered, and she was wearing crushed velvet, purple crushed velvet, everything, like a little trouser suit. And I just thought she'd make a really great character. So sometimes something happens from something like that. So for example, this book, Hubert Horatio, started with a drawing I did of this really tiny boy in a really huge bed. And I thought I'd really like to write about somebody really small, really young, who lives in a massive house and has a massive brain, you know, he's incredibly clever. And he lives with these stupid parents, and that's really where the idea began, and that was it. And I think I'd written one little thing about him, and 6 years later I sort of came back to that idea and wrote this story.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the course of the illustration and the writing, is there a lot of editing in your process, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. Yeah, and I once I've written the story, I start illustrating, and as I'm illustrating I keep editing right until the end, because when you're drawing, you often find you've drawn the thing that you were explaining in words and you don't need it there anymore.
Right.
And I always think with picture books it's such a great discipline, because in a way you're trying to get them down to as few words as are necessary to tell the story,
Okay.
whilst keeping the characters. Obviously, there's a point where if you get rid of too many words, it's going to get really boring. But that is a balance.
How many books have you done now?
I think I've done about 30 books.
30 books.
Yeah.
Is there a particular book that's close to your heart among your books?
Yeah, there's a few. The Hubert one is a favourite for me, but I think probably the most favourite is this one, Clara's Bean, That's Me, and really because that was the first book that I wrote, and it got turned down a lot, and it took 5 years to get someone to agree to publish.
Were there reasons they're giving you over the 5 years why they didn't want to publish this book?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was to do with it was unconventional in normal kind of picture book storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing is that it opens up, the story begins right on the end papers, which is very unconventional, but in many ways that suits the story, because it's a girl talking out of the book, and she's talking out at you,
Right.
and she's one of those really chatty children, so it almost is, I think it's perfect that she does that, because she's one of those children you imagine you open their front door and she's going to start talking all
Right away.
right away, telling you everything. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is there isn't a conventional title page and half title page and all the things that they tend to like you to have. Again, that some of the text begins here, sort of thing. So it's like you're in her house already. The other thing was the first person thing. They often don't like you to do in children's books, because they have this idea that it, or they had this idea anyway when they saw me, that it's too sophisticated for children, and they need something that takes them through a story much more structuredly, and so that was one of the things. The other thing is the type being within the pictures in this way, so that the type becomes actually the pictures. So there's a good example of this here, where without words the picture wouldn't make any sense at all. And so they wanted me to either get rid of the pictures and make it like a poetry sort of book, or get rid of the words and make it much more conventional. And I think probably for me, I was old enough and had failed at enough things to know when I'd done something that I thought was good, and that if I made the changes they wanted me to make, it wasn't going to work, and I would always be really dissatisfied somehow.
The integrity was there and you knew it.
Yeah.
There was a strong feeling of that.
Yeah, and I remember this guy saying to me, well, you know, it will never be published. And I said, that's okay, I don't mind if it's never published, but what I can't live with is it being published in the wrong way. So.
Right.